Hi, welcome back to Tatsumaki Talks. My name is Brennah, my co-host is Dylan, and today we're talking about Delicious in Dungeon and A Sign of Affection.
Welcome back. All right, so let's kick things off with a bit of housekeeping. We have a new patron at the free tier. Welcome, Timmy.
And we want to give a shout out to our producer, Boinstar.
Thank you, Boinstar, for your ongoing support. If you're interested in supporting us over on Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/Tatsumaki Talks. And for those of you who subscribe at any of the paid tier levels, you'll get your name announced as a producer on our show each week. Also, at the $5 a month tier, you'll have access to our new series of exclusive patron-only casts.
With that being said, do you want to start talking about some Dungeon Meshi?
Yes. Oh my gosh, this show is getting so hype. So just to be clear, we're not totally caught up. I know it's still coming out weekly. We just ran through what I would call like the turning point where we get the episodes about the Red Dragon. We basically speed ran from like episodes 10 through 15.
Mm-hmm. Which is probably not a lot of anime for some people, but we sat down and binged it because I just didn't want to stop.
Yeah, no, I mean, the show has been super bingeable. Like when we do get time to sit down and like do what I affectionately call research for the show.
Yeah.
No, this show is so fun though. And I love that we're going deeper now into the world and the world building and the plot. Like when I first introduced this show on here, I said, forget that it has a world, just focus on the food. Well, we've done that now for like the better part of 12 episodes. And now we're going to start doing some more like deep introspective work.
Yeah. And what I would call the real plot starts to kick in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, up until this point, the entire motivation for the show has been to find Fallon and save her from the dragon's belly, which at the beginning I thought that's kind of far-fetched.
Yeah.
As it turns out, we were right.
Yeah, she was already done, digested, basically.
She was dead.
Converted into fiery fuel. In any case, she was done. You know, I have to say at the start, I really thought that Fallon as a character just didn't feel like much. And to be fair, they didn't give us much to work with at the beginning, but she almost felt like an object, a MacGuffin to drive the characters like Laios and Marcille back down into the dungeon without a whole lot of like to do about it. And now that we've actually got to meet her and spend some time with her, I mean, really just in the last 4 episodes, we got a lot of characterization for Fallon. And
a lot of flashbacks. And we finally understand why Marcille is interested in Fallon. Because her and Chilchuck are doing this mission for free. Well, for Marcille, that's her friend. And they slow drip that information, which was really good.
And for Chilchuck, we find out that he's just really poor at expressing his emotions. And he's become attached to these people as his friends.
Yeah.
He just doesn't know how to express it.
Yes.
These are great character beats. I mean, we're focusing on like the minutia of the characters, like their internal struggles with like their emotional expression, their ability to be open and honest with each other and be vulnerable and share themselves. Like these are just really relatable for people like right now. This is fine character development. This is not like shallow. Like just because it's not the fate of the world in the balance we're talking about, I mean, that's exactly why this kind of thing works, in my opinion.
Yeah. And at the same time, the story balances that. We're getting more depth with the characters, like you said, but we're also getting more depth of a storyline. So while the fate of the world isn't in balance, we start to get the introduction of politics in the world and why outside parties and outside political factions are interested in the dungeon, as well as getting more personal interest in the dungeon. Like, why is Marcille interested in it? I thought that was interesting. As it turns out, she studies taboo black magic, and that's her specialty. And that's why she's always like, this isn't my specialty. This isn't my specialty to all the base spells.
Yeah, that could have been such a throwaway line for her to say that about this, that, the other. But then it's made so much more like concrete about her character when she reveals that her specialty does exist, and it's in this like very niche magic,
ancient black magic.
Yeah,
which is why she's personally interested in the dungeon and personally interested in finding the Mad Mage.
And this dovetails nicely as a connection point, a through line for her character's reason to be in the dungeon, but it's also dramatically important to the entire world. We get the two gnome characters who then make their foray back up to the surface, and they're talking with like a local political leader about how important it is that the research being done in the dungeon continue, because there is this incredible magic related to the preservation of life.
Yeah. And it's interesting that this black magic and this ancient magic has gone by the wayside and people don't understand it. Even Marcille, that's her specialty, and she uses it to bring back Fallon, but she doesn't seem to understand all the repercussions to it. As we see, it has some very big downsides to Fallon and ties her inextricably to the red dragon.
And we see Mage who summoned it.
Yeah, and we see the Mad Mage basically be able to unable to distinguish between Fallon and the red dragon. So she's unintentionally made Fallon a thrall of the Mad Mage.
Yeah, which is a really cool way for this to turn into, like I said, a turning point in the story. They came down, they found Fallon, they kind of went through a test of trials. They got to the dragon, they slew it, but the dragon wasn't the end boss. It was just a minion, which is good storytelling. And now with the real like antagonist revealed, one with character, one with, a tie to the dungeon, a tie to the world that is way deeper, you've got this great setup for a conflict between the party and this Mad Mage character who now has their friend captive.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it's just interesting that they don't understand every aspect of the magic, and that's why people are so interested. And this Mad Mage really probably can't communicate it very well because he is mad. He sees everybody as a thief and is still trying to find his master. And you see, even like the dead townsfolk do not like him. They help our characters in different ways and kind of seem to be trying to help them overthrow the Mad Mage, because they're probably tied to this place as souls existing here for a very long time and do not want to be there.
Yeah. Just the whole inclusion of this idea of how death and dying works is a really cool like thread to weave into the show, don't you think?
I agree, yeah. And I like that on one hand, it removes some of the stakes and the impact of dying. In our world, death is a permanent thing. No one comes back. But in this world, they can, and yet there are limitations to that. They establish a bit of a hard system to death, and, the bones can't be removed. You can't take them away too far, and both in location, geographically, and temporally. I thought that was really nice. And again, contrasting that to what Marcille does, there appears to be some differences. Like when you see other people use revival magic, they don't need animals. They don't need to tie it and use the essence of something else or provide a sacrifice. And then here, she does, and it has some downsides that she's not even aware of.
Yeah, and like you said, normally having this ability to bring characters back from the dead would really lower the stakes. And it's such a huge issue to a magical fantasy setting where magical healing exists. It would change so much of our world if this existed in real life, right? But here, the limitations and the drawbacks do a lot to make it a more meaningful addition to the show that doesn't just completely diffuse the tension.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, Dungeon Meshi's temperature just went up like 10 degrees and we're not even done with the show yet. And that makes me so glad because I am still in love with it. I love the character building. I love that we're talking about adventurer economy and like labor dynamics. Like this show has room for so much fit around it with seemingly a very innocent kind of hook, which was, the cooking. And they haven't left that behind in these two episodes, this 3-part episode. It's still there. They've just shifted focus for a moment. And I feel like it's an easy thing for us to do that and to weave back and forth between the very light, fun of let's eat the monsters to this deeper world that we're now immersed in. And you didn't have to do it through exposition dumps. As a lover of fantasy genre in any format, I hate sometimes how I'm like force-fed exposition, like Tolkien style 3-page long paragraphs about the world and its politics. Show, don't tell. This is what I want. Oh my gosh, they're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice. And they do it well. Like they have tasteful flashbacks, not like, Naruto flashbacks where it's every episode. And sometimes there's flashbacks and flashbacks.
Dear Lord, yes. But I think as we shift gears, we're going to think about endings more. And no, we're not talking about Frieren for once. We're talking about A Sign of Affection Season 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we wrapped up the first season of A Sign of Affection, and I'm so glad we stuck with the show. Like, I was pretty much hooked from the beginning, but it ended up being, like, really enjoyable.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I love the relationship dynamics, and I love that it wasn't just one relationship. Because, I mean, frankly, in real life, that's not how it works. Like, everybody's got their own thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really fun to see, and I love how they ended it with the, all of those working out, minus Oshi. We do see Emma and Shin get together, which was satisfying.
Yes, it was.
We saw, and I love how they didn't like pit like Emma and Yuki together, because that just would have been like the worst. I'm glad it was like more mature. Her and Shin talked about it, and then they both digested their feelings and then got together. Like, that's great. That's great. I didn't want to see like just women being pitted against each other, so I was happy.
Yes. No, it's such a trope in like all the Western romance types, and like all the like, I think of like, Bridgerton and all these other shows that revolve around like scandal to kind of like drive the motive. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad we didn't get like a Western style cliffhanger ending, or like the drama looming at the end of the season. We see like we don't see Itsuomi like, texting some other like character we haven't been introduced to yet, or like, that's the kind of thing that Western romance, I feel like, leans on so heavily, is like the drama and the like the infidelity is like used like a freaking cudgel to like drive the characters forward and into action with each other. And it's hot, but it's also like they're constantly clashing and then making up. Dude, sometimes I just want the things to go right. Like, the show is so cozy because it doesn't lean on, traumatic scandal and drama. It's such like it's like putting on a warm coat in winter. It feels so nice. Yeah,
they're not messy, which I love. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like some of that. I mean, I watch Bridgerton occasionally.
I do too.
But
it's good.
This is just easier, like, because these characters aren't like emotionally repressed. They're fairly open about their feelings, minus Oshi,
right?
And like, people don't like him because of that. Like, they have normal human reactions to when someone is openly rude and aggressive to you, and everyone else seems pretty well emotionally adjusted. And it's just a cute story about two people falling in love, and that's nice. It's just nice.
It's really bright. It's hopeful. It feels like warm, like a spring day. It fits nicely with the idea of the seasons changing from winter to spring, which we see in the show. And it's like a recurring motif. She talks about her love for Itsuomi being like falling snow at first. And then it's like her world opens up.
Like a flower
in bloom. Exactly. I love this narrative. I love these motifs, this poetic narrative. It's like, this is what gives a romance some like real, like Shakespearean level depth. Like, you need this in order to get the vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, and for me, vibes, the importance of vibes is really like a show will deliver evocative imagery and writing that allows you immersion.
Yeah.
And that's the vibe I want. Like, I want a show that brings me into the feelings experienced by the characters. That's the immersion I want. And I think they nailed it.
I think they do too. Especially at the ending scene where you have Yuki and Itsuomi in the Wisteria Gardens. I mean, for one, it's transitioning into spring now. We've probably gotten our last snow. Things are finally in bloom. Spring is my favorite season, so I just loved all the flowers and her taking the pictures, and I can just imagine. And you can just see it, that warm spring day. They've changed the color palette a little bit. You have less blues, you have more warm tones. It's just, oh man, I'm ready for more spring. And that was just nice to see it on screen too.
Agreed. Well, I think that wraps it up for our show, unless you got anything else to say about A Sign of Affection.
No, I don't think I do at this moment. I was just overall enjoyable. I really hope it gets renewed for season 2.
Same.
It hasn't been announced yet. Nothing else though. The manga's out there though.
Yep. So until next time, and if you want to, get at us with your questions so that we can answer them in our patron-only cast. And other than that, if you're wherever you find our content, whether it's on TikTok in our shorts or on YouTube with shorts or our long form episodes, we appreciate your time and attention. We know there's a lot of anime content out there, so thank you for spending your valuable time with us. We appreciate that. Even if you don't decide to join us on Patreon, we just appreciate it if you decide to watch, if you like, subscribe, or share it with a friend, or leave a comment. So whatever you decide to do, thanks. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.